So I want to talk a little bit about. I was just thinking of this while you were talking. Is the balance of like being competitive versus being realistic. Maybe realistic isn't the right word, but what I'm thinking of is again. I remember because my just so if anyone doesn't know, playing AAA growing up, my team was about as bad as it could be. There was no. We had horrible coaching every year. Our team was not very good. We had two or three players that were okay up until I was maybe 15. So I'm talking 8-1, 10-2, 13-1 every single game against other bad teams. Like not we were horrible. And I remember coming home from some of these games and like I don't fault my dad because he didn't play. He didn't really know the dynamic, whatever. But other parents as well. Like we would always carpool up with somebody. And I remember coming home and my dad and whoever the other dad was that we went for that weekend with, me and buddy in the back seat would be like, game's over, we're on our way home now, like we're having fun, like goofing around in the back seat. And it happened countless times where my dad and other dad would be like, aren't you guys like embarrassed, like aren't you guys upset that you just lost and lost like that, like doesn't that matter to you guys? And I remember sitting like same thing, just like my coach that game against Honeybake. I remember sitting in the back seat and I'm just like what do you want us to do? Number one, it's over. Number one. And then number two, it's like they're better than us. Like they're faster, they're stronger, they're better coached.
And
They,
yeah, I was just gonna say
they
that you didn't have an adult
no,
coach kind of steer the ship. It was just like go work hard.
no. And so like we'd be sitting in the back seat and I'd be like made to feel bad because I'm not like mad enough about losing, you know? And so I want to talk a little bit about like what are your thoughts about kind of that situation is like how long, like if I don't know if this makes sense as a question, but like how long should you be upset for? How upset should you be? Like what's the level of emotion? What's the difference between that and actually being competitive? Vice whatever. Because a lot of times you can mask like the emotion of being upset as like, well, I'm just so competitive. I just hate losing and that kind of thing. So there's a question in there somewhere. But like what do you think about that kind of setup for the kids when it is that situation?
Yeah, it's that situation's so different. It's it's you know like you because right, that you're not a good team, you're not well coached, like, and everyone can pretend and say, well, that's a bad attitude, but it's like you just know you're being, like you said, you're being realistic. And I think that they there this is very true, is that winning breeds winning and losing breeds losing. So you learn how to lose. And yeah, anything you do, if you have like, I always say this, right, like someone that has, you might like steak and lobster, surf and turf we'll call it, another, to coin a phrase, you might like it, and it's maybe it's your favorite meal ever. It's probably good once a month or something along those lines. But you have steak and lobster every day, then it's just steak and lobster. It's just no different than a peanut butter sandwich, right? It's like it's just another meal. The point of that, I hope that makes sense, is that if you lose all the time, then you kind of get used to, like, it's just losing. That's what we do. And you maybe even look individually, like, I just hope I play okay, right? Like you do lose focus unless you have someone really steering a ship, being really a real leader, right? But the same goes for winning, right? Like if you got a winning team that, um, let's say you're a top team and you play your team, and it's a 3-1 game, 3-2 game, you keep them close. It's like it's just another win, and it's like they're actually pissed about the win because it wasn't a big enough win, right? So you just expect to win, and it's like it's not the thrill of victory anymore. And that's the difference, I think, in youth hockey, when you have a super team as opposed to, like, in the direct opposite, is like you just know you're not very good, or you're the best and you shouldn't even have to try, and you guys are shit and I shouldn't even be playing you guys.
Yeah. So I was just talking to a dad the other day, and his kid plays in that Toronto loop, and one of the teams is supposed to be like the number one in Ontario, and they lost a game, one game. They lost one game, and it was like sell the farm. Like we need a new team. We gotta start recruiting for next year. We gotta change things up, whatever. And exactly along the lines we're saying, it's like sometimes they're just kids. They're gonna have a bad game. Like that can happen. They can lose. Sometimes the worst team beats the better team, and that happens. It's not the end of the world, but it goes both ways to your point about losing and winning. It's like if you're constantly used to winning, you win every game all the time. and then all of a sudden you lose a game. It's like, well, even as the parents, you can get sucked into that. Like I remember you telling me with your super team in Belltire, like sometimes the parents would be like, well, we gotta start winning games. It's like,
Okay, so as you were saying that, it just reminded me real quick. It's really hard, and this will go both ways. It's really hard to drill in their head that they have to work and they have to have good habits, and they have to come to play every game, and that you can't just turn it on because you're good for the last third period, and you have to have good habits because you never know who's going to come. Because they really, many games we'd be, the, drop the puck, go in their zone. Our goalie would do the Ken Dryden holding the stick basically, and maybe they would get a shot on our net, maybe, but we were in there buzzing, get a line change, still have pressure, and just buzzing. We might get 12 shots in the first 5 minutes, right, or more, and then we'd start to score, and then the wheels would come off for the other team. Typically, that would be what happened. So it was really hard to say that you have to have all these different habits because no, what are you talking about, coach? We win, but then so that's that. So we were playing Victory Honda. So this is we were having a not I wouldn't maybe a little bit of a lull. I think the kids were feeling a little bit. Every team does it, so it's not the end of the world, and people have to recognize that. So we had in November we tied Victory Honda, which kind of and we were playing like a little bit sloppy for a couple games, and a couple of the parents were just mean mugging all the time and losing their you can't tie. Like I think it was Columbus one time. They played hard, man. And our guys were just maybe I think our guys played hard. We just didn't bury, but we got outworked. We actually got outworked by this Columbus team that had no business um, competing with us, honestly. And like the parents were all upset, like what's going on here? And then we tied Victory Honda, and then I think we beat them just by anyways, we're in that lull, and no one would give credit to the Victory Honda. But they had Alex DeBrinker. Remember, I told you about that. He was a very good player that worked hard, and they had a hardworking team. And when that saying that talent beats hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work hard. That's what it was. So it happens, and it can happen, and it's like very very important to learn that you have to play a hard game every time, every time. And I saw that with my super team doing that when they chose to take time off or take shifts off or create bad habits or get selfish or not understand that hockey is a game that you could lose any night if you're even if you are prepared, right? And then on the opposite side is that you can win any night if you actually work hard. You can catch someone on a bad game, and those are things you're maybe hoping for a little bit of luck, but if you work hard and have a way to play, you have an opportunity to win.
yeah, and I think that's kind of I wanted to leave a bit of a take home message for the parents because on either end, like if and it's not just if you've never played, but like the role of attitude is really important and actually understanding the situation. So me thinking flashing back to all those games we lost and all those car rides home where it's like we're just getting grilled on the way home about how much we suck. Where it's like we know we suck. All we do is lose. It's like you don't need to tell me. Like I know, and it starts to feel like not worth the effort because it's like it doesn't matter what I do. We're gonna lose. That's just what we do. We lose. And then the flip side for the winners, it's the same thing. So if you're the parents, particularly on the losing side, because it's harder to deal with losing than winning, obviously, but keeping things in perspective on the losing end and understanding kind of where the team is at and not being unrealistic, because that's like the kid's just gonna shut his ears off, man. It's like the kids aren't stupid, they don't have knowledge about a lot of things and they're inexperienced, but they're not stupid. It's like if they've lost 15 games, if they're 1-15, it's like they know they're not very good. So you can't act like, well, you guys don't try, or you guys are you should be playing better than you're playing. It's like actually probably not. It's like actually they're just not very good. So let's find a way to parent or guide around that situation in a way that makes sense. And that's where we get back to like we're not focusing on outcomes, we're focusing on process. Flip side, if you are a parent and your kid plays on one of these big Toronto teams, or your kid is playing in Detroit or wherever in Minnesota, and they're one of the best high school teams in the world or whatever, it's like they're gonna have a bad game. They're gonna have a bad stretch. They're gonna have whatever. And you can talk to any player, any parent. At some point during the year, they'll feel like things aren't going very well. It doesn't matter if they're on the best team ever. So being able to like have some perspective and understanding like this is like the cycle of how things go. This is where our team's at. We're still a really good team. We're allowed to lose a game. Sometimes the other team's going to have a good game. That's going to happen. And then if you're the losers, it's like our team's just not good, man. And we have to deal with this. These are the cards. And let's figure out a way that we can actually still have a successful year. We're going to change our definition to not be winning as success, but how can we have a good game against a better team? How can we have a good game or whatever? You know what I mean?